enthusiasts shopping for a performance four-door muscle car, Dodge certainly offers a plethora of choices with the 2020 Charger lineup. Ranging from the mild 292 horsepower V6 all the way up to the insane 717 horsepower SRT Hellcat Daytona, there's basically a Charger for every enthusiast depending on your budget and of course how crazy you are. Which brings me to what I would like to call the Goldilocks of the lineup. I'm here in Sonoma, California with Dodge to drive the 2020 Dodge Charger Scat Pack Widebody. It has most of the goodies that you get from the Hellcat model, but for about $20,000 less, it offers a much better performance to dollar ratio versus what you get with the Hellcat model. So the big question I want to answer, if you guys are looking for that performance four-door muscle car and you want to spend about $50,000, how does the Charger Scat Pack Widebody stack up? That's what we're here to find out. Now, being a four-door muscle car, I want to first start with underneath the hood of the Scat Pack model. Now, if you guys are looking to see what I think of the SRT Hellcat, be sure to click on the link in the description below to watch that. I'm going to focus on the Scat Pack because I personally think this is the Goldilocks of the lineup. And then, of course, it starts with underneath the hood. You get a naturally aspirated 6.0-liter Hemi V8. It's a pushrod engine. It displaces 392 cubic inches if you guys want to go by the old school numbers. And this is the most powerful production naturally aspirated V8 that Dodge says is in the segment at 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. That's more horsepower than what you get in the Camaro and more horsepower than what you get in the Mustang. Now, it's all going out through an 8-speed automatic transmission built by ZF, so it's one of the best transmissions you can get. And then, of course, Chargers, this particular one is only rear-wheel drive. If you guys are looking for an all-wheel drive Charger, you'll have to step down to the V6. I really wish Dodge would consider offering all-wheel drive on the big V8s because it would really improve the 0 to 60 performance. Now, this car in general weighs around 4,300 pounds. It's about 100 pounds lighter versus the Hellcat models. And in case you're wondering, fuel economy is rated at 15 in the city, 25 on the highway. That's actually a 2 mpg improvement over the Hellcat, but be sure to put premium gas in this thing because it's a big naturally aspirated V8 and it wants the good stuff. Shutting the hood, you can see the design of the Charger got a significant overhaul for 2015. And really, there isn't really too much to show in terms of changes for 2020. Dodge says that they've made some adjustments to the front fascia. There's this new mail slot intake right here that sucks in air. The whole front end here has functional air intakes to help cool the big V8. You have standard bi-xenon headlights with an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, no fog lights, of course. Instead, you just have a functional air intake here to help cool the brakes, to help cool the engine. It's still a mean-looking car, and really the only difference you're going to notice in the front versus the SRT Hellcat is the badge. You have a little Scat Pack badge here with the little B in its wheels and that retro badge. So some of you may prefer that over the badge that you get on the Hellcat. Overall, in this silver color, I actually think it looks pretty good. And typically I don't like silver cars, but Dodge has really done a good job at keeping this thing looking really bad, even though it's a very old platform. Now, the Charger is still a very big vehicle at 200 inches long. This is about as long as Chrysler's Pacifica, the minivan. It's about 6 inches longer than something like a Kia Telluride or a Honda Pilot. So this is a big vehicle. Its wheelbase at 120 inches long also is one of the longer vehicles in the segment. Now, being the wide body model, you can see the fender flares have been beefed up. But Dodge went further than to just slap on some fatter fenders in this thing. They also redesigned the rocker panels. They redesigned the suspension. They upgraded the wheels. These are a 20-inch wheel, 305/35 series tires at all 4 corners. And you also get the same brakes that you get on the Hellcat models. These are the 15.4-inch slotted rotors in the front with 6-piston Brembo calipers. They're a 13.8-inch rotor at the back with a 4-piston Brembos. Dodge also says that they've adjusted the suspension of this vehicle. The suspension is about 27% stiffer in the front because it's got bigger anti-roll bars, and at the rear it's about 52% stiffer versus the non-wide body model. Remember, you can also get the Scat Pack in a narrow body configuration. The wide body adds about $6,000 extra versus its standard on the Hellcat because the Hellcat has like 230 extra ponies, so you're going to need that extra grip. Now at the back, you can see the rear design hasn't really changed much. You still have that full-length LED taillight. You have this new black finished rear spoiler that looks particularly good on this silver exterior color. And then of course underneath here, the exhaust tips look fantastic, and I'll let you hear what that big mean V8 sounds like. the one thing you can really appreciate about Dodge is the sound is all authentic. There is no fake noises that you get with a lot of the competitors, a lot of those modern cars. Now, opening up the trunk, this is a big vehicle, so you get around 16 cubic feet of trunk space, which is, to be honest, on the small side considering how large this vehicle is. The seats do fold down 60/40, and then underneath here, there is no spare tire. All you get is a fixed flat kit with the battery. Dodge says if you guys go for the V6 models, they will include a spare tire, versus the V8 models do not have a spare tire. So let's move on to the interior for the 2020 Charger Scat Pack Widebody. The first thing I want to show you guys is the key fob. Unlike the Hellcat model, you can see there is no red key for this vehicle. It's just the black key. It does come with the company's smart key access system with push button start. You can see there is the remote start function. You can just double tap that twice and it'll activate the remote start. But when you keep the key fob in your pocket, all you have to do is just approach the door handle of the Charger. You can see there's a little... Rob, I'm trying to film! So once you're done looking at the outside of the Scat Pack Charger, let's move into the interior. Here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see this is the old FCA key that I've shown you guys before. There is no red key on the Scat Pack model because it doesn't have the ability to unleash more horsepower, but you can see it does come with remote start. Just double tap that button twice here. And the vehicle will start right up for you. If you want to shut it off, you can just double tap that button again, and that will shut off the engine for you. Now, once you keep the key fob in your pocket, you can see this door handle here is just like the one that's on the Challenger. There's a button here on the outside of the door handle. If you touch that button, that locks the door. If you want to unlock it, just touch the back of the door handle. You can see here, it will unlock the door for you. Now, my tester here has a really nice interior and exterior color combination with the two-tone. It's got the red inserts with the suede, with the leather buckets. The steering wheel, you can see, is slightly beefed up for the Scat Pack model. And you can see it's got that bumblebee emblem in the center of the seat backs. It's a overall very nice interior. The seats especially just make it look a lot more special versus the standard Charger models. Now, getting inside, the Charger in general just makes you feel like you're getting into a really huge vehicle. It just has a huge hood that kind of takes up a lot of your view from the windshield. And then when you want to shut the door itself has a really solid funk to it. So it's a great first impression. Even though this car is really old, it's based on an old Mercedes platform, remember. Now, when you want to start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake, push this button here to fire up the engine. Now you can see the engine itself, even though this isn't the big boy supercharged Hellcat motor, it still sounds really damn good. And this is going to make a lot of people happy considering how much less expensive this model is versus the Hellcat version. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, you can see it's got the red stitching here on the dashboard. It's a soft touch injection molded plastic. This is kind of new with the faux stitching. It actually looks like real stitching, but it's actually fake stitching. So keep that in mind if you guys were thinking this was real stitching. Instead of the carbon fiber you got on some of the Hellcat models, you can see this is kind of like a texturized aluminum trim. The door panels are the same materials. You have two-way memory, two-person memory seats. The windows are one touch up and down for both the front windows, but not the rear windows. You can see it's nice and leather stitched on the armrest here. There's a good grab handle. It's hard touch plastic down here with more storage, which is nice. I wasn't expecting the steering wheel to be power, tilt, and telescoping, which is good, unexpected. You can see buttons here for your adjusting the screen over there, for your cruise control. This one here has adaptive cruise control, and it's also got the audio controls on the back of the steering column along with the paddle shifters, which are nice. The gauges, you can see, are slightly different versus the Hellcat model. You have a 180 mile per hour speedo, different tachometer, different font. The center stack here, this is probably where I have my biggest issue with the Charger and Challenger's interior. It was updated for 2015, but a lot of this just reminds me of an old Chrysler or Dodge Grand Caravan from 15 years ago with the switchgear in here. It just could use a complete redo. Nothing like what you'd find in like the new Jeep Wrangler. You can see this 8.4-inch Uconnect head unit does include Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. There's the new iOS 13 with its home screen, which is really nice. It's a very snappy, excellent interface. You can see there's your audio information. There's your embedded GPS. This car has a Garmin-based navigation. It's really quick. So they've got the right technology in this car, which is what you expect. You can even adjust these apps. Like if I wanted, I can move this, put this over here on the passenger side for the cooled seat. You can rearrange the apps and whatnot. So this system still looks good. It's a relatively good size. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see just a standard backup camera, parking sensors, but no 360 camera. In a vehicle this big, they should offer a 360 camera. I'm not entirely sure why they don't. Drive modes, you can see here, going to the drive modes, you can adjust it from auto, custom, sport, It'll show you exactly what you're changing. You can customize the custom mode over here. This car does also come with a launch control feature. Just push this launch button and you can adjust the RPM when it's going to launch. All you have to do is just floor the accelerator and the brake, and it's supposed to just take off. We'll see if we can try that later on in the test drive. Now, unlike the SRT model, you don't actually have the SRT pages. Actually, you do. It also has the performance pages. When you click on that, it takes a second for it to load up, just like in the SRT models, but it gives you basically all these different gauges. It has a G meter, a track meter, it shows you how much power the engine's making, whatnot. So all this is very cool. It's a nice gimmick feature for a lot of enthusiasts that want to show off to their passengers. Now over here, this controls the 8-speed automatic. It's a very traditional shifter because Chrysler went away with their electronic shifters due to that recall on the Grand Cherokee a few years ago. There's a nice area here where you could put a little bit of storage. You can see you could pull this out here and clean this up if you'd like. Dodge Brothers designed in Detroit. So lots of pride with this vehicle. Some of the parts in here, I will say this is a soft touch plastic, but I don't love how there's a big gap right here where I could get my finger in there. And it's a little bit of an inconsistent gap. You can see right there is a larger gap versus over here. This textured plastic aluminized trim isn't quite as nice as the carbon fiber you got in the SRT models, but you can see a nice little lid here for the cup holders, good sized cup holders, so a little bit more storage. There's a center console storage over here, which is a pretty good size. You have 2 USB ports, an aux port, no USB-C ports like in some of the newer Jeep Wrangler, for example. And then if you look over here, the glove compartment, it's big, massive, damped, lined with felt. And then my tester also has a sunroof here, no panoramic sunroof, which doesn't surprise me considering the age of this vehicle. And then the seats, they're very wide, very supportive. They take up a lot of space in the interior, but if you guys are wider frame, you're gonna really like the seats. So overall, the cabin of the Scat Pack, it's very much competitive, especially for the price that Dodge asked for one of these. The design isn't particularly my cup of tea, but at least they've included most of the tech that you expect in today's modern cars. Now, getting into the back seat of the Scat Pack Charger, you can see Dodge says you have about 40 inches of legroom back here, but I'm a little skeptical. Just like what I said in the SRT version, it feels more like around 35, 36 inches of legroom. There's a huge hump here for the center, for the rear drive shaft, so the middle passenger is kind of shafted. You still have 2 USB ports, 2 level heated seats, and then rear seat air vents, 2 map pockets over on the seat backs. And then you can see the door panel materials are soft touch plastic. Now, the one thing that you do get in the Scat Pack versus the SRT Hellcat is you actually get an armrest here that folds down. I don't understand why Dodge removed it on the Hellcat models, perhaps to save weight. Who cares in a vehicle that weighs 2.5 tons? But you can see this one here, 2 cup holders, a little bit of storage over here. So really, if you guys are looking for the better back seat, if you're gonna compare the 2 models, the Scat Pack has the slightly more comfortable option. So in the media, everybody always likes to hype up the Hellcat models. I mean, 707 horsepower, supercharged V8. What's not to like about something like that? But for me, when I first drove the Scat Pack models, they kind of had just the right amount of power. I mean, almost 500 horsepower is nothing to sneeze at from this naturally aspirated 6.4 liter Hemi V8. And now that it has the wide body package, this thing puts the power down very well now. I mean, yes, the back end gets a little bit squirmy, but I actually just drove the Hellcat today, and that one gets way more squirmy. It puts the power down okay, but I feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more safe to push this thing to its limits a little bit harder. Now, granted, I'm sure if I drove these cars more for a longer period of time, I mean, I'm here in Sonoma, with these on this very short media drive, so I'm just kind of taking these out on loops. But I have to say, the Charger Scat Pack feels a great deal different than the Hellcat version. I mean, the steering wheel obviously is a little bit different. The gauges are different. Everything else in here, though, feels pretty similar. I just like the approachability. You get a little bit more of a calmer feel with this car. It's not so crazy. The exhaust is a little bit quieter in the Scat Pack, I'm noticing. It's still a wonderful V8 induction howl with that lovely V8 growl. It just feels like its limits are more attainable. I mean, nearly 500 horsepower is plenty for a sedan that weighs around 4,300 pounds, and Dodge says you'll get to 60 in around 4.3 seconds in this thing. Now let's try out the launch control in this thing. All you have to do is just hit launch and then floor it, and then it'll apply full throttle. quite get it right there because the back end started to slide, but but it just doesn't scare me as much as the Hellcat did. And this thing feels fast. I mean, it feels like it gets to 60 in the 4-second range easily. I mean, 4.3 sounds a little conservative. This thing feels and pulls so hard. You gotta love the sound and pull of a naturally aspirated V8. Oh my God, bless you, God bless you, Dodge, for still offering something like this. This is just insane. It's so old school, it's so charismatic. If you are so tired of those new cars with all their self-driving tech, get yourself one of these. This is just fantastic. Listen to the way that shifts. Oh my God. The perfect shifts from the 8-speed. The ZF 8-speed is just one of the best transmissions in the industry. And it's a wonderful partner for this 6.4 liter Hemi V8. This is truly like the Goldilocks experience for me. I mean, yes, the Hellcat feels like it has more pull. It has that amazing supercharger whine, but I would rather drive the Scat Pack. And really, for a starting price of around $40,000, what's not to like about this? I mean, yes, you could compare it to a car like the Kia Stinger GT. The Stinger GT is very similar in terms of the speed. It probably handles better. No, probably it does handle better. But this also has a unique feel to it, and a lot of people are gonna really like the way this car drives too. And because it's rear drive, you can leave some rubber so easily. I mean, I have all the nannies on. The stability control's in its like sport mode right now, so it lets the back end slide. But even though the back end's sliding, it's just, you know, it's sliding in a way where it doesn't make me feel like I'm going to myself, basically. And the steering in this car also is a little bit lighter than the Hellcat that I last drove. It's still not as like heavy as I would like it to be. Like the Kia Stinger has better steering feel. This car is just really difficult to classify in terms of competitors. I mean, it feels big, it feels heavy. It also feels comfortable. The ride quality in this is pretty subdued, and it's actually a little bit softer than the Hellcat version. So if you're gonna compare this to the Hellcat, obviously this is significantly less expensive, but I'd argue that this one's a little bit easier to daily drive, and it's still bloody fast. I mean, sure, the Hellcat's a second faster 0 to 60 than this, but there's nothing wrong with a car that'll do 0 to 60 in the low 4s. It's just insane. But really, I imagine, what if Dodge put all-wheel drive on this? I mean, I just don't get why they only offer all-wheel drive on the 6-cylinder. I mean, yes, 300 horsepower from the V6 is fine, but who wants just fine in a car that's supposed to be a 4-door muscle car? Now, my tester does have some driver assistance tech. It's got the Dodge, adaptive cruise control, forward collision alert. It has blind spot monitoring. Visibility in here is, not wonderful. It's much better than the Challenger, but you have these skinny little side mirrors. You have this big A-pillar here. The view out of the back, though, is fine. The seats, they are comfortable. They don't adjust in terms of the bolsters. You can't make them squeeze you in and out, squeeze you or, release you a little bit more. But they are very much tailored for somebody who's very wide. But it's pretty easy to see why Dodge still sells a very good amount of these. I mean, a lot of people love the Charger. It has so much history in its name. It has so much character. And yes, this thing is, old as hell, but I am looking forward to seeing what Dodge is capable of doing for the next generation. I think that they need to find a way to preserve the muscle car heritage that the Charger's always had, but kind of bring it into a more modern era. I'd like to see, a little bit less weight, a little bit more interior space, keep the charismatic V8, although the rest of the world is going electrification. But this car literally is a huge middle finger to electrification and self-driving, because this car has the self-driving stuff, but Dodge's systems don't work quite as well as a lot of the competition. The lane keep assist in this car does not work as well as the newer, high-tech stuff. But overall, it's still a very comfortable car to daily drive, and I would very much argue that the Scat Pack is the sweet spot in the Charger and Challenger lineup. So if you guys are looking for a fast 4-door, it's a well-known fact that Dodge offers a lot of bang for your buck, whether you go for the base V6, which starts at under $30,000, or you go for the insane 707 horsepower Hellcat, which starts at under $70,000. Now, I actually had a chance to drive both of these vehicles back-to-back today here in Northern California, and I came to the conclusion that the Scat Pack model is easily the Goldilocks in the lineup. With nearly 500 horsepower, a naturally aspirated V8, that quick shifting 8-speed, and a starting price of under $40,000 for the narrow body version. This car offers a lot of bang for your buck. Now, obviously, I don't want to compare this car to the Hellcat because this is $20,000 more expensive. It has way more horsepower. But what the Charger Scat Pack does compare well against is the new Kia Stinger GT specifically, which also starts around $40,000, has about 120 less horsepower. It only has a V6 while this has a V8. There's a lot to like with this car. Now, as you guys saw from the on-road driving, it has a really good ride quality. It's a little bit more comfortable than the Hellcat. It has an exhaust note that makes itself known, but isn't terribly annoying, where if you want to quiet it down, it will get quieter. The interior, while it's still not my favorite in terms of its design, still is very comfortable, and it comes with the modern tech. And as you guys saw, the back seat for some reason has that fold-down rear armrest, which you just don't get in the Hellcat models. So go figure. Now, of course, this particular one that I'm showing you isn't the base Hellcat or Scat Pack model. It's $6,000 extra for the wide body, so around 46 grand. The red brake calipers are $600. The sunroof is $1,300. This one has the Harman Kardon premium sound, the upgraded technology package. This one here, this silver one, stickers for around $57,000, which is a couple $1,000s more than a Kia Stinger GT. But keep in mind, if you guys take away some of the options that this one has, you can easily get it into the mid $50,000 range. And for me, that's the sweet spot. There's not a lot of cars out there that you can get four-door sedans that are around $50,000 that have nearly 500 horsepower and that don't beat you up. And even though this thing is rear-wheel drive, it doesn't scare me in the way that the Hellcat does. So if you guys are just looking for something that's a little bit more docile, but still fun, the Scat Pack wide body should easily make it to the top of your list. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2020 Dodge Charger Scat Pack wide body. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.